All right, good evening. This is your daily tip for June 17th, and I'm following up on yesterday's Zoom lesson when I talked about ionic compounds. And everybody should be definitely studying in chapter 3 by now and viciously studying for the test, which you can begin to take tomorrow. You have 2 hours to take it. You can take it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. All right. Let's talk about the periodic table. We know that group 1 is always a +1 charge. Group 2 is always +2. Then we jump way over to group 13. They are always +3. The noble gases do not form ions, but in order to look like a noble gas, group 7 would gain 1 electron to be -1. Group 6 would gain 2 electrons to become a -2 charge, and group 15 would gain 3 electrons. Now, this group here with carbon, you're going to find out in the next chapter, they're going to share, but everything with those ionic charges above it is called a main group element, and the main group elements only have one type of ionic charge. But what I want to talk about right now is this group right here called the transition metals. Now, transition metals begin to fill the D sublevel, and that means that they will adjust how much they pair up, and that means that sometimes they have variable ionic charges. You don't need to memorize those. They are listed on page 86, some of the more common ones. And it's not necessary to memorize them. As I think I stated in another daily tip, the tests on the question will not be involving simply memorizing. They will be higher level thinking because I can't keep you from looking at the textbook. So let's go through how we would name those. And we have to use something called the stock system. Okay, in the stock system, you use a Roman numeral to indicate the charge on the metal. Okay, now, if you know anything about the Romans, they didn't know about negatives, so there is no negative Roman numeral, and they didn't know about 0. So there is no 0 in the Roman numerals. So the only thing that you can have is just positive numbers. So it's just for the metals. Just a little bit of history there. So let's find out what this means. So let's say you've got copper 1. That means copper +1 metal. If you have copper 2, it means you have the copper +2 metal. Now these are different colors, and they form different compounds with different properties. So it's kind of important that you know what these Roman numerals mean. So let's say you have copper 1 chloride versus copper 2 chloride. Copper 1 means you have copper +1. Chloride is always -1. So the formula would be CuCl. Copper 2 means you have copper +2. Chloride is always -1. So the formula would be CuCl2. That's pretty much it. What if you have to come up with the name from the formula? Let's say that you have tin chloride. Now, we know the name, but we need to figure out the charge on tin. Okay, so we're going to work backwards. So chloride is always -1, and if you have 4 of them, then the charge on this tin must balance out 4 times -1. So that has to be 10 plus 4. So that's a 4. Okay. One other thing, we did not talk about polyatomic ions. But they work just like any other ion. So for instance, if you have copper, let's do a different, let's do magnesium nitrate. We want to write the formula. Okay, so magnesium is always +2. And if you look, let me give you a chart for that. Page 97. So we look up nitrate, and its formula is NO3 with the charge of -1. Now that nitrogen is bonded with 3 oxygens. You don't need to worry about that till the next chapter. They're covalently bonded. All you need to know is that all together, this group of atoms has a -1 charge. This magnesium has a +2. So you're going to need 2 nitrates to balance out the +2 there. So magnesium nitrate, the 3 belongs to the oxygen, don't forget that. And so we need 2 of them. But we don't want it to look like a 32, so we need parentheses around it. That's it. Not too bad. It's not too much math in chapter 3, so that might be a good thing for some people. Most people think so. I would certainly appreciate any questions that you have from the homework before you take your test. So look over those homework questions. And like I've been emailing some people, it's not enough to merely look at the questions and the answers. That is not studying. You need to write down the question, write down the answer, and try it. Then check the answer. It's really important. That's called studying. Some people have asked me about, where did the PowerPoints go in the chapters? Well, I don't have enough memory to list those, and that's not really a good way to study. If you really want to study and use a PowerPoint, my suggestion is you go to the textbook and you write your own PowerPoint from the notes. Okay? Because a PowerPoint is just the textbook. It's just notes from the textbook. There's no secret to those. They come straight out of the textbook. So if you want your own PowerPoint, I would suggest write it. Okay? It's just the same as taking notes from the textbook, which is, by the way most people who really are very good studiers, they take their own notes. It's not, reading a PowerPoint is not really that great of a way to study. It's merely a way for somebody to present things to you in a classroom. All right, I hope that helps, and please send me your